company logo is there to entice a potential customer to come and peruse your establishment. In this video, I'll be making one for a fantasy weapon and blacksmith shop. Hello, my name is Navang and welcome to the second video in this series. In this video, I'm going to be working on a workshop logo for the project. If you haven't watched the previous video in this project series, don't forget to check it out. As you're watching the video, you can see my references on the right side of the canvas, and on the other side, you can see me working through some thumbnails. I tend to keep my references on the canvas to have them readily available for me to look at. Some folks may use another program such as PureRef or another file to keep their references available to view as they work through. The reference I pulled were part of the idea of a blacksmith, so the anvil is usually the go-to reference. I pulled a few references of a few different types of anvils from across the world. The proprietor of the shop is a fox person, so I pulled in a few foxes to use. Of weapons, I pulled swords, rapiers, and a battle axe. One of my references I pulled had a cool shape when all the rapiers were on display together. It sparked an idea for one of my thumbnails to arrange the weapons into a fox head shape. I didn't get to add them into the logo design, but I pulled a few prosthetics as they are part of the proprietor's story and design, which I will follow up in a future video. Thumbnails are good for getting as many ideas on the page as possible. They don't have to be amazing, but they have to be able to convey your ideas to yourself if it's a personal art project. I did a few, but going through as many ideas, good or bad, is good to get out of your systems. Sometimes you think an idea is good, but once it gets on the page, it may not end up being to your liking. A bad thumbnail can always be reiterated into another idea if you still want to make it work, though at some point you need to call it and pick a few to finalize. Most of my thumbnails try to keep on the topic of blacksmith weapons and a fox. Then I had to keep in mind about other things that are often associated with those topics. Additional words or topics that usually come to mind first when thinking about a blacksmith are the hammer, the anvil, the fire, and the forge. Weapons are often quickly associated with their particular variety as a sword or a rapier, war, blood, and danger. Words that are associated with foxes are cunning, sly, not trustworthy, and depending on the person, cute or playful. Combining some of these things can get you on the right track for your thumbnails, though if you combine some of these topics, your mind may end up trailing to something else that relates to these topics. With a blacksmith owned by a fox, one would immediately think of Firefox and design a logo with that in mind. I wanted to try to get away from the internet browser logo thinking and move more towards having a blacksmith design as part of the logo. In my thumbnailing stage, two designs seems to hop out at me, a forward-facing fox design and a side-facing fox design. The forward-facing fox had an additional idea on top of it. The fox head could be used to be a hilt of certain weapons. This could be an amazing calling card for the people who are shopping for weapons to be able to direct additional customers to the shop. The fox head of the design had to be symmetrical to be able to be used as a hilt. For the design of the fox's face, I tried to make it look cunning but still approachable. The lower portion had its tail wrapped around, and I eventually added a small forge on its belly. The side-facing fox, the idea was a fox sitting with a sword strapped to its back. While placing the sword on the back of the fox, the idea of turning the pommel of the sword into the eye came to me. I thought this was a good way to integrate the fox and the weapon together. In this design, I tried to get a V into the design in multiple places. The V portion of the design aspect loops back to the proprietor, whose name begins with that letter. She's a little vain and wants folks to know that she is the one selling these weapons. The point, the tail, and the ear are some of the more prominent V shapes. For the final touches, I added some flames into the tail and a bit into the ear fluff as a slight references to the flames of the forge. Between the forward-facing one and the side-facing one, I eventually went with the side-facing logo. An idea of mine is to use this logo as part of my video thumbnails to keep the entire series consistent with each other and make it easier for viewers to find associated videos. My process for art tends to be a sketch and then cleaning that sketch up with clean line art. Once the clean line art has been finished, I move on to colors. For the fur of the fox, I went with an orangish red. I then used bits of black as part of the hilt eye and the scabbard of the sword. The white is interlaced with the color designed to break up the red from being the whole focus of the logo. And then I finally included a dash of yellow to signify gold, as the proprietor of the shop is one who likes lavish gold accessories. As I wrap up, the logo is looking pretty good, albeit a bit simple. I can imagine this on a signage outside the shop and select weapon sheaths. Besides an in-universe reason, again, I plan to use this logo as a signifier on video thumbnails for this series of videos. In this video, I was way less rambly than my previous one, as I wrote out a script to help guide my thoughts instead of trying to voice over the recording as I watch it back. I'm still learning how I want to make these videos. I do plan that I want to inject more world building, lore, and story into these videos to make them a bit more entertaining. Lastly, I want to thank you for stopping by and continuing with me on this project journey. The next step for this project is finally putting things into a 3D setting for one of the rooms. If you want to see more, please like, comment, and subscribe, and I hope to see you again. Thank you.